In that initial planting year, once we started using the mycorrhiza, we were seeing just really good stands, faster initial growth, better root mass, and just healthier, better color on the plants. My name is Riley Spears. I'm the agronomy manager for Rader Farms in Lyndon, Washington. We're a conventional raspberry and blueberry farm that was started in 1941. I was first exposed to mycorrhiza fungi at some soil health conferences, learned about a lot of different benefits of it and how it could help the plants. Making that switch from this kind of traditional, conventional farming system that we found ourselves in, using synthetic fertilizers and constant tillage, it's a hard switch to make to a more sustainable, soil health-driven farming system. Soil health doesn't just kind of shift overnight. It's kind of a long-term thing, and that's why I'm trying to work really hard to kind of transition our farm to that. But it's that transition aspect that is difficult because, to really put everything you need to into rejuvenating soil and kind of building up that microbial activity, you might have to deal with, short-term losses, which, in a lot of times is not financially sustainable for farms. So I feel like, all of commercial conventional ag has kind of got itself in a bind where, you talk to a lot of farmers and everybody cares about this stuff and wants to make that switch, but there's just not a real clear avenue on how we do that. For the last 2 years, we've been using it on our new planted raspberries, and we've seen increased growth, vigor. We're hoping to see better disease management in the long run. The mycorrhiza also helps with stress and drought management because you have that increased, access to nutrients and minerals and water that might be in the soil. When we're preparing to apply it to the field, we have a starter fertilizer that we kind of mix up into a tank, and then we use the tractor to go over these, raised bed hills using a water wheel system to kind of apply a set amount of that fertilizer to each of the planting holes. It also makes the spacing for us, and in that solution we have the mycorrhiza inoculant. And that way when we plant the roots into it, the fungi is actually inoculating the root tips. The mycorrhiza fungi are actually growing into the root tips and then expand and kind of grow around the root base of the plant. With the water wheel that we're putting through the field, we're applying about 4.5 fluid ounces to each of the planting holes. 80% of that is about water, and we've kind of come to that amount of liquid that just helps moisten the soil and makes it easier to plant. You don't have to do a root dip with a solution. A lot of the products are sold as just a powder. So you can just kind of either apply it into the hole where you're planting it, or even apply it on top if it's gonna get drenched in with irrigation or something like that. It's only a few dollars an acre to add a product like this for us. I think by kind of improving soil health and utilizing things like AMF that can help us tap into the nutrients and minerals that are already available in the soil. Ultimately, we can, reduce the amount of inputs of, fertilizers and other pesticides that increase our costs. I'd say the primary challenge was trying to figure out how to use it and how to get it into the field. With most agricultural systems, labor is probably the most difficult thing to kind of get around. So just kind of brainstorming and trying to figure out the most cost-effective way to get it into the field, without having to treat every plant. And we found that the water wheel application, because we were already going through to make the spacing and we were already putting a starter fertilizer into the field, that seemed to be the easiest way for us. Yeah, we've definitely seen increased yields and increased vigor. So there is kind of an economic benefit to some of the practices that we've been doing. I would say definitely give it a shot. A lot of the things that I've been experimenting with have just been on a really small scale at first. If you're not convinced that, the AMF can help, just use it on a few small plants in your garden. That's what I first did, was just trying it on a really small scale in some pots, and you can kind of see almost an immediate difference. And, with the way that we're kind of slowly tiptoeing and kind of making some of these changes, over time, we're going to see a lot more benefit and a lot more reduction in cost inputs.